True crime story. The shocking case of Andrea Bharatt. In the bustling streets of Port of Spain, Trinidad and Tobago, 23-year-old Andrea Bharatt was finishing up her workday. A young woman with a bright future ahead of her, Andrea was a court clerk at the local courthouse. She'd been working hard, eager to get home after a long day to relax and spend time with her family. Little did she know that her routine commute would soon become the stuff of nightmares. It was January 29th, 2021. Andrea's journey home started like any other, boarding a taxi at the Arima bus terminal, just a short trip to the comfort of her home. But in a split second, her world would be turned upside down. As Andrea climbed into the back seat of the taxi, the man behind the wheel had other plans. He wasn't just a driver, he was a predator. Andrea's life, just like so many others before her, would be changed in that one fateful moment. She would never make it home. The family was immediately alerted when Andrea failed to arrive. Her phone was off, and no one had heard from her. What started as a normal evening quickly escalated into a frantic search. Her parents, friends, and loved ones were desperate. The police were notified, and the search began, but nothing could prepare them for the heart-wrenching discovery that was about to unfold. Days passed, and the authorities scoured every corner of Trinidad. The country was in a state of disbelief. A young woman with no history of being in danger had simply vanished. The local news outlets picked up the story, and the whole nation was following along. Social media was flooded with pleas for information, and yet Andrea's whereabouts remained a mystery. But then, on February 4th, 2021, a breakthrough. In the dense, isolated forests of the heights of Arapo, a body was discovered. Andrea's body. Her lifeless form was found discarded like garbage, hidden away from the world. The police quickly confirmed the grim news. Andrea had been murdered. The moment the body was found, shockwaves rippled across the nation. Andrea was someone's daughter, someone's sister. The idea that she had been subjected to such horror was unfathomable. The police launched a full investigation, but what they uncovered was even more chilling than they could have imagined. The prime suspect? A man named Andrew Solo Morris. He was a known criminal with a history of violence and sexual assault. He had been involved in other similar crimes, and Andrea was just another victim in his dark, twisted pattern. Morris had been operating under the radar for years, preying on vulnerable women in the quiet corners of Trinidad. As investigators dug deeper, they uncovered disturbing connections between Morris and other cases. Women had gone missing in the same areas, and their bodies had been dumped into remote, wooded locations. But Andrea's case would shine a light on the horrors that had been hidden for far too long. Morris was arrested, but the case didn't stop there. The investigation uncovered more shocking details. It was revealed that not only was Morris a predator, but he had a history of kidnapping, assaulting, and disposing of his victims. He had lured Andrea into the taxi, taking her to a remote location where he held her captive before murdering her in cold blood. The public's outrage grew as more details of his criminal activities came to light. But then, something unexpected happened. Two other suspects connected to the case, Andrew Morris and Joel Balkan, were found dead while in police custody. What seemed like a simple case of justice being served quickly turned into another scandal. Autopsies revealed they had been brutally beaten to death while in custody, leaving the public with more questions than answers. How did they die? Was there corruption within the police force? Was this another attempt to cover up the true extent of the crime? The nation was left reeling, questioning the integrity of the very institutions that were supposed to protect them. Calls for justice for Andrea grew louder, but they also called for accountability within the police force. Why did this happen? How did this suspect, a known criminal, slip through the cracks for so long? And how could something like this happen right under the nose of law enforcement? Andrea Bharatt's tragic murder sparked massive protests across the country, with women and men alike taking to the streets demanding justice. The message was clear: no more. Women in Trinidad and Tobago had had enough of feeling unsafe. They demanded stronger laws, more resources for women's safety, and an overhaul of the justice system. They weren't just mourning the loss of Andrea. They were fighting for change. Andrea's death became more than just a crime. It became a movement. The story of Andrea Bharatt became a catalyst for change. People wore black in solidarity with her family, and large protests marched through the streets of Port of Spain. The question on everyone's mind was simple: how many more women would have to suffer before something changed? Her death became a symbol of the deep-rooted issues surrounding gender-based violence in Trinidad and Tobago. It sparked reforms, but it also made it clear that this was just the beginning. The fight for justice in Andrea's name would continue. As the story of Andrea Bharatt unfolded, one thing became crystal clear. Her life was not taken in vain. Her story became a battle cry for women everywhere to stand up, speak out, and demand the change that's so desperately needed. Her legacy is one of courage, and through her memory, the fight for safer streets and a more just society continues. Andrea Bharatt's story, though heartbreaking, will be remembered for the movement it inspired, one that will echo through the streets of Trinidad and Tobago for years to come.